Hey guys, Sonic Shuriken here with a new video! Now I know it's been like forever since the last time I posted anything, but I get like 20 to 40 views on my videos, so it doesn't really matter, right? Anyway, it's been a while since Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel came out, so I felt a bit nostalgic and I decided to revisit an old school game. So I'm taking your asses back to 1999 to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Like never before. Or like it used to be played before? I don't know anymore. Anyway, welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories for the PlayStation 1. I'm not even sure if this counts as a Master Rule, but if it does, it's got to be like Master Rule -3, I guess? But enough of that. Get ready to travel back in time with me to a time where you could only normal summon, a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon directly from your hand. Fuse monsters without the use of polymerization or any fusion substitute card to summon cards you don't even have in your deck. In a time when dual monsters were real and the people battled with real monsters and real magic. Also, you could only use one card per turn. Traps and spells are extremely scarce. Fusion didn't exist yet, so we had to make do with rituals. One of the hardest grinds and some of the most overpowered opponents. This is where it all began. For me at least.
We're obviously going with Atem as a name. And for some reason, as a kid, I thought the name had something to do with the deck you end up getting, like some sort of code or whatever. I don't think that's true, but it was fun to think that. Anyway, I ended up having to restart the game a couple of times so I can get a decent deck, after which I got a deck with 2 Yamatano Dragon Scrolls, a Dragon type card, and Dragon Treasure, a Dragon Equip spell card. So I began my journey to cruise through the first part of the story. For reference, from this point on, you may hear me refer to this guy as Hussein, and Atem as Hatim, and Shadi as Shadi. If you don't get the joke, you're probably not familiar with Arab names. Moving on. Long story short, the game starts 5,000 years ago in the far lands of Egypt, and the mischievous Prince Atem likes to dress like a commoner and go down to the duel ground, where he meets his commoner friends Teyana and Jono. I'm sorry, it's just that those are totally ancient Egyptian names. But before we can leave, Shimon Moran has something to say about that. We can run, but I wanted to duel him to unlock him in free duel. I was able to defeat him thanks to some lucky monster smashing. I'm not calling that a fusion. They're not even fusion monsters for Ra's sake.
Simon Morai was his name, I think. I remember. White Dolphin is what we get this.
From there, I headed to the card shop, saved, and went into free duel mode. I spammed Simon Moran 8 times until I had enough star chips to get my 3rd Yamatano Dragon Scroll, and it felt like having 3 copies of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. With a deck full of plant type cards, Black Dragon Jungle King was easily accessible. With its 2100 attack, I was going to cruise through the rest of the story mode. Up until Seto, that is. I still needed an electric to be able to get the twin-headed Thunder Dragon. So I spammed some more. I got a Mammoth Graveyard, and a couple of plant-type monsters, and more star chips. So I went ahead and took a Petite Dragon, making the total dragon cards in my deck 4! Anyway, we dueled Teana, this random pyramid laborer, this overly cheerful kid, and this old man. Then we move on to the town plaza, where some sort of festival is being held. And this is where we first meet Seto, beating Jono's ass. We end up getting dragged into dueling Seto. Luckily he's too busy for us. So we head back to the dueling grounds, kick Joey's ass, and instantly have to face one of the game's strongest opponents. At this point, I thought to myself, maybe I can take on Seto, if only I could get a Black Dragon Jungle King out on my first turn. And then it happened. We stomped Seto, and you'd think you'd be rewarded for having defeated one of the game's main villains. He gave us Kageningen.
Yet right after beating Seto, Joey feels a sudden confidence. After being defeated by me and watching me defeat the guy who wiped the floor with him, something kept telling him to duel me, and that he stood a chance. As hard to believe as it may be, his duel ends up more rewarding than Seto's. He gives us a Time Wizard, coupled with 4 dragon cards. That's a 2-card access to 1000 Dragon, a 2400 attack card. From here on out, the story would go to progress beyond Egypt, so I decided to save and spam these characters I unlocked in free duel mode. I felt an urge to have at least 10 wins and 0 losses against each one of them. During this rampage, I ended up gaining the following cards: Fiend Sword, an extra Yamatano Dragon Scroll which I couldn't use, Hamburger Recipe, a couple of Dancing Elf cards, a couple of Muka Muka cards, Sword of Dark Destruction, House of Adhesive Trap, another Time Wizard, and Dragon Statue. As for starships, I ended up getting Lala Liloon, Oscillo Hero, Kaminari Kozu, Electric Snake, and Bolt Penguin, which are all electric type, so we can get to the twin-headed Thunder Dragon. Then I went ahead and got a Wicked Dragon with the Erzal's head. I don't know if that's spelled correctly, but whatever. And with that, I was ready to tackle the next part of the story, facing Al-Hussein and taking my first defeat. Remember how I said this game has unholy overpowered opponents? This is what I meant. This guy has an unfair advantage where a game against him starts with a default field power-up for his cards. Not that they need it, but the game likes to make sure you stand no chance in beating him, so you can have a false sense of security. I remember as a child playing this game, I had reached Hussein without a single defeat, then I lost to him and the game continued, so I assumed that's how it works. I carried on playing without saving until I lost to Pegasus and realized it was game over. I hated the game devs for that. On a side note, once you finish the game, you can start a new game with your endgame deck and actually beat Hussein. But that sore loser still attacks you after losing, so yeah, inevitable plot point is inevitable.
Anyway, you obviously lose to this monstrosity of an unfair deck. You get to carry on, and Simo suggests that you break the Millennium Puzzle, which you eventually do, trapping your soul and his within it, where it waits for someone to reassemble the Millennium Puzzle. After a long conversation with Simo explaining what's going to happen forward, Yugi wakes up to Joey's annoying voice, and it turns out we're about to enter a tournament held by none other than Seto Kaiba. Naturally, with the deck we're able to assemble, the first part of this tournament, also known as the preliminary phase, was a breeze. Almost. Bandit Keith had to pull some bullshit and summon Zoa. I almost had a heart attack, but somehow managed to beat him. But everyone else was easy to beat, including Rex Raptor, Weevil Underwood, and My Valentine. The next set of the tournament, also known as the finals, is a bit tougher. Shadi shows up, uses his Egyptian magic to allow us to speak to Hatim inside our head. After a brief conversation through telepathy, it is revealed that we need to seal 6 Millennium items within 6 blank cards. Shadi, being our first opponent, who was pretty lame in terms of cards, gave us the Millennium Key and the Millennium Scale. Next up is Yami Bakura, which to be honest has a pretty cool artwork. The duel was pretty easy, and eventually I got to seal his Millennium Ring into a card. Next up, Maximilian Pegasus and his damn Toon monsters. Now this is where things started to get rough. It meant that if I had a bad starting hand, I could well end up losing. Believe it or not, I lost 3 times to Pegasus. It felt like the game was rigged. I had 8 dragons in my deck at this point, out of 40 cards. The odds of having a dragon card in my first 3 turns, considering I would discard my entire hand to try to get one, would be 8 in 25. Yet in 3 duels, I didn't get a single dragon card. Feels like the Millennium Eye was pulling a fast one on us. Eventually, I was able to beat him thanks to a lucky hand and kick his ass. Boy, was it worth it. Baby fucking dragon. We got Baby Dragon from Pegasus, one of the best drops since Time Wizard. Oh, and we took this man's eye and sealed it in a card too. And so, with another dragon in our arsenal, we were ready to take on the next challenge, Ishizu, or Isis as she's referred to in this game. And to be fair, she put up a good fight, but our dragon deck was not having any of it. We took her Millennium Necklace that had foretold her defeat. Next up is the man himself, the legend, Seto motherfucking Kaiba. And this is where things get out of hand. I mean, sure, this guy is one of the series' main antagonists, turning into a rival, but still. This early on, this guy can summon a damn blue eyes white dragon. I mean, it is his signature card, but damn. At this point, I need 4 cards in order to be able to beat him. 3 to summon my twin-headed Thunder Dragon plus Dragon Treasure, which I only have 1 copy of, with a 1 out of 40 chance to get it, making this duel one of the hardest ones I had to win thus far. Naturally, I lost the first duel to him. On my second attempt, I got lucky and was able to defeat him, getting the last Millennium item, the Millennium Rod, which I never understood why Kaiba was the one holding onto it, considering how he doesn't believe in all this ancient magic stuff. Wasn't it Merrick who had it? Though this did happen before Merrick was even conceived in the manga and anime. With all the Millennium items assembled, Hatim was finally able to return to his time, but he wouldn't be returning to the once happy and prosperous kingdom he left. He would return to a deserted and ruined wasteland under the tyrannic rule of Al-Hussein and his lackeys. Tune in for part 2. I'll see you guys in the next video. Kaminari Kozu?
あ、ソニック手裏剣さん。